As lawmakers in Washington try to reach a deal on gun legislation, many young people are using their voices to call for action. Founder and CEO of The Conversationalist, Sophie Beren, and March for Our Lives Youth Congress member Ruquan Brown join me now to talk about the importance of including Gen Z in this conversation. Thank you both for being here. Sophie, I want to start with you because your whole shtick is you try to foster safe spaces for Gen Zers with different point of views on a lot of hot button issues. So what are you hearing from Gen Z about the recent mass shootings across the country and the debate surrounding them?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Diane. I wish it was under better circumstances. Gen Z right now, although not a monolith, it's impossible to generalize what an entire generation is thinking. A majority of Gen Z is in favor of stricter gun laws. 70% of voters under the age of 30 want stricter gun control reform. And so in this conversation right now, I'm seeing Gen Zers across the political spectrum bringing different ideas to the table. For example, we are seeing an example set forth for us by our politicians and lawmakers with a lot of finger pointing, blaming, and name calling, whereas our generation is truly coming to the table with a willingness to listen. Although we may have different conceptions of the solution to solving the gun violence issue, we agree unequivocally on both sides that this is an issue that needs to be solved.
Now, Ruquan, March for Our Lives is a student-led movement that supports gun control legislation. It was launched in 2018, just about a month after the Parkland, Florida school shooting. Why is being a part of this movement so important to you, and what kind of change are you hoping to see?
Well, first, thank you for having me. And I'm really excited to be able to represent not only March, but all of the people in our country who care about our lives and care about us having an opportunity to experience life at the grocery store or at school, and all of these common activities that Americans should be able to safely partake in. It's really important for me to be involved in this fight because I've been experiencing gun violence since I was 5 years old. I'm 20 now, so that means I have 15 years of experience with this particular trauma. It's really important that to mention that what we're looking for is for all of us to be able to be safe in our country. And some of us are looking for stricter gun laws, right? We want to raise the age from 18 to 21. We want Congress to pass universal background checks. We want to be safe. We know that guns are really, really, really negatively impactful on our safety. We also know that it's a lot deeper than that. So we're looking to also expand the conversation to not only guns, but why people even feel the need to pick up a gun and use it violently. Another thing that's really important is that this isn't a conversation just about pro-gun or anti-gun, but most importantly about pro-love and pro-peace. And so it has less to do with what, but more to do with why.
Sophie, do you think that the country in general has done a good job of including Gen Z in this conversation? And why do you think that's so important?
That's a great question, Diane. And Ruquan, thank you for sharing your experience. In my opinion, I think as a generation that is experiencing gun violence firsthand, I think Maxwell Frost, who could be our first Gen Z member in Congress, even coined us as the mass shooting generation. It is more important than ever to include us at the table. And if I'm being completely honest, I haven't seen a lot of Generation Z representation in the room where those conversations are happening. I think our generation is doing a great job of taking action. A majority of Gen Zers can't yet vote. We're organizing protests like Ruquan is doing with March for Our Lives this weekend in DC. We're organizing national walkouts. We're starting these dialogues in any way we can, but it's going to take intergenerational dialogue to make our voices truly heard. So I think we are seeing more and more young people take action, step up to the plate to use their voices, but it's going to take members from every generation to bring us in and create a seat at the table to actually affect change for a generation that is inheriting this issue firsthand.
And Ruquan, you're describing, years and years of having firsthand experience, exposure to gun violence. So what do you think is the most effective way to raise awareness about that kind of violence and how it impacts you, the person, children growing up in this environment and people around them?
Well, I think that certainly marching works. The states listen to us when we march. In 2018, there were more than 150 laws passed in our states to help us be safer. And so that's the beginning, I think, is for, like Sophie said, intergenerational work to come together, or for all us to come together across generations and work together, because we all have experiences with hate, with death, and with these things that we shouldn't encounter so often. I think that the way to continue this movement, the way to keep this conversation going, is again to not focus so much on what, but more on why. The truth and the reality is that so many American people are losing our lives at the hands of each other. But what we haven't really explored as a nation is, why is that happening? And when this nation is responsible and was built on hate and violence, it makes sense that in today's culture, those things still exist. And so what I think Gen Zers need to be responsible for with these other generations is spearheading this conversation about love, about peace, becoming more familiar with that as Americans, because Americans are not as familiar with love and peace as we should be. We're very familiar with politics. We're very familiar with academia. We're very familiar with business, but we're not very familiar with how love intersects with those things. Once we are able to have that conversation, I think we'll be successful.
All right, Sophie Beren, Ruquan Brown. It's a conversation I wish we didn't have to have, but I feel very honored that you joined me to be a part of it. Thank you both.
Thank you, Diane.
And tonight, you can watch our ABC News Live special, Guns in America, from Buffalo to Uvalde. That's at 8:30 Eastern, 9 Pacific on ABC News Live and streaming on Hulu.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.